Hello. Welcome to Robin and Josie's classic Shambles morning. For the first time in 7 weeks, I got in first because Robin was momentarily distracted thinking about a 1970s entertainer. And that's
I'd lost a book, but I found it. I found the book. No, we were talking about that before we began, which is I am overly obsessed. I remember once Matt Lucas saying to me, he said, I know people find this weird and you're going to find this weird, but I love watching old episodes of 3-2-1. And I went, this is anyway weird to me. The lure of 70s and 80s, because I was telling Josie that for some reason this morning at 7:45, I thought, how should I start my day? I am kind of trying to research a science book. I should probably watch an interview with Morris from the Grumbleweeds on some kind of Mediterranean cruise that he was an entertainer on.
What's weird is I've never heard of the Grumbleweeds prior to this morning, and now I've heard the word Grumbleweed like 40 times. I still don't... Is it like the Wurzels?
Well, kind of, I think. The Grumbleweeds were, they began in 1962. They originally started out as an entertainment. No, they were one of those, a bit like the band. Have you ever heard of the Barron Knights?
No.
The Barron Knights used to do novelty songs. They did a song called Get Down, Shep, which I think might have been #1, which was all about John Noakes getting annoyed with Shep jumping up. Get down, Shep, you're as bad as a naughty dog. And they used to do parody songs. Grumbleweeds were similar. So they were like a kind of working men's club circuit band who would go on, here's a couple of songs of it all together, here's some impressions, here's some sketches, here's a man in a gas mask doing a monologue. It was classic. End of the pier entertainment, and I am overly obsessed. Anyway, good morning.
I love it. It's so exciting to me. Again, the 70s are fascinating to me because I was not alive in any of them, and so like they just have this kind of odd allure, but this absolute impenetrability for me because I'll never truly understand, but I'll just be bombarded. Like this is silly, but so much brown in decor. People genuinely liked that.
Yeah, the brown, and then eventually that evolved into the avocado bathroom, the all-matching bathroom. I don't know if there's any adverts in one of my old colour supplements because there's normally adverts for fixtures and fittings, and I think it was a strange time because it was far enough away from the Second World War. There was no more rationing. People who had lived through the war, like the things we've talked about before with recipe cards. And we should mention, by the way, our guests today are Helen Zaltzman, Andy Zaltzman, and also George Egg, who does a lovely line in recipe cards himself. So there were all of these lurid foods that shouldn't really have existed, mixing everything that was now available, and so those kind of, and I think there was this sense that this was meant to be the best of times.
I think we should bring Helen in because Helen's someone who has a number of sort of 70s cookbooks, and I feel like you're somebody who shares this interest in these things.
So welcome our guest, Helen Zaltzman. Hello, Helen.
Hi, thanks for having me. And how fortuitous. One of the things I brought to show you is a gift I was sent by my friends in Sweden, Will and Zara, just the other day. It's a Willys Lilla cookbook too. I don't speak Swedish, so this is all I know. And it very much has the 70s styling of food that looks like that.
Wow.
But it also has like a Halloween.
Sorry, show that again, because that was initially a Petri dish when you showed it to me.
Hang on.
It's not.
That's just a close-up of couscous. Where's it gone? Where's the big plate of...
It's a wonderful
there's
thing,
another...
isn't it?
Oh, God. Wow.
Yeah, that's the different kind of cookbook. That's the cookbook that says this is good for you. Oh.
Yes, right. This is like a bridge between the gelatine fish and the Cranks vegetarian. This is like trying to embody both. Oh, what's that?
That's just a full-page shot of raw mince.
Oh, for a moment I thought it was a poster for a David Cronenberg film. That was a very exciting moment.
Let me take you to the Halloween section of this book then, Robin, which is my favourite part. So you've got these bats with dicks.
Of course.
Oh, my goodness.
And you've got... who else have you got? You've got the KKK cakes.
Oh, my God.
And
how can I just check? Is that a meringue-based cake? Is that each one of those the peak of a meringue that makes the KKK cake?
I can't tell you, Robin, because the recipe's in Swedish.
Is one of
Is
those
it a
recipes
KKK
called
cake or is it
Mum's
KKK?
Mums? Helen, is that recipe called Mum's Mum's Mums? Mum's Mum's Spoken. Well, I say that all the time.
I don't know what's in it again because I don't speak Swedish, but it's fingers made of something. Frankfurt, carrots.
So realistic.
Almonds for nails.
That is an interesting, because I now feel that I should get a copy of that book, and every time that I watch a favourite Ingmar Bergman film, Wild Strawberries, Silence, I should also eat maybe a bit of KKK cake, or I won't eat raw mince probably. Was that actually the dish, or was that the first stage?
I think it's just describing raw mince.
I think they had a colour plate to fill, and they only had 20 minutes to work out what to do.
Yeah. I mean, here's a glamour shot of fondue, which always photographs well. Just big yellow. But this, although I think it is in the 70s or early 80s style, it's actually from 2002.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
70s revival, maybe.
So when were you drawn? What was, because I mean, you were brought up near Tunbridge Wells, which has some fantastic charity shops, very good.
Yes.
I've picked up interesting things. It's only a small Oxfam bookshop, but it's very well stocked.
Well, I worked just down the way from that Oxfam bookshop, and it was our rival, actually, especially as they had a lift into the basement that you could put books in, a very small lift.
So where were you then?
Was there real animosity between you and the Oxfam bookshop?
Yeah, wipe those charities off the planet. Well, I worked a few doors down at Hall's bookshop, which had been there since 1898 and had a lot of books for 10p. And because I could see the books coming in, I could swipe anything that looked interesting, which is where my collection of vile and evil cookbooks really took shape.
That's wonderful.
A lot of very sexist stuff. But then at home, because my mother was a human woman in the 60s and 70s, we also had a lot of them. And there was Not Just a Load of Old Lentils. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's I've still got all the kind of ring binders where my mum had cut out from Good Housekeeping, but that's an interesting thing, that the battle between bookshops and charity bookshops, because I think you've done it as well, Josie. You too, like me, have been a host of the Charity Shop Awards, haven't you?
I have actually. Yes, I have. Yes.
One of the great
only time I've done a corporate and not died.
It is so much fun. I remember, I forget which charity shop. I think it was in Exeter. It was a hospice charity shop. It was its night. It was the big night. It was the Braveheart of charity shops that particular year in terms of just sweeping the board. And it was great. There was this the woman who won. The first time she went up, she kind of just grabbed me and wrestled. It was a bit like the Brian Blessing story of how he does awards. She kind of wrestled me, and then and the second time she just kind of went Rah! And it was all the things that you don't see. It was charity shops letting go at the excitement of those that had won the best Christmas window display 2007, and it was absolutely. And the next day she was mortified. She went, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I said no, it was great. It was a wonderful thing to see this sudden just burst of utter exuberance that lies behind good management of a charity shop. That's how I felt. Anyway, we should also bring in Andy Zaltzman. Andy, I don't think we've segued easily into your show and tell. But what's your show and tell today?
Can I just quickly pick up on something Helen was talking about, the Swedish cookbook, because I do speak Swedish, so I can tell you exactly what that means. So Willie's Lilla Cockbock. Cockbock means for cannibals. Lilla means cookbook, and Willie's means for all Swedish people. So that would explain some of the photographs. My show and tell.
It's even got eyes on the cover.
This is my show and tell.
Wow, what is it?
Is that your eBay purchase history printed out?
This is I can't quite see what you're seeing on the screen. This is the scorecards from the Cricket World Cup final last year that I compiled working for BBC's Test Match Special radio coverage, using a scoring system that I developed in 2016, an age when you would have thought pen and paper had been consigned to the history books.
Hang on, what do you mean? So what, are you scoring them separately to the results of the game?
Well, so what my job is, as when I'm doing cricket coverage on the radio, is to come up with statistics of potential interest to the listener and the other commentators, and to provide basic information that the commentators need or haven't noticed. Anyway, so I developed a system with, as you can see, a childish number of coloured pens and highlighter pens.
Yeah, you need a full pencil case just to operate that system.
Josie, I have 3 pencil cases on the go when I'm doing that job. 3.
Oh my God. And they say these people aren't hardworking.
Do you have one pencil case per team?
I do not, Helen, no. But it is a 3 pencil case job. It's the only thing in my life that I am at all organised about. So anyway, so that's that. So that was my, as a child, as Helen will testify, I was ridiculously obsessed with cricket and remain so even in these cricketless times that we're living through right now.
Doing what Johnny's doing. Johnny is watching old cricket matches on YouTube.
You say old, Josie. They are eternal.
Yes,
truly. He's what? Yes. Now they are in heaven. They're sort of forever preserved. Exactly.
Yeah. It's the block universe theory of cricket, which Einstein. Don't know everyone reads Einstein's book on the block universe theory of cricket, but Samuel Beckett did.
Well, Samuel Beckett played first-class cricket for Trinity College Dublin and had a brief obituary in Wisden Cricketer's Almanac, and I believe is the only first-class cricketer to have won a Nobel Prize. So,
see, that's what I was wondering, is he the only person to have won the Nobel Prize for literature, or is it all Nobel Prizes? I've never been certain whether maybe there was someone who won the Nobel Prize for physics, for instance, who might have also been a first-class cricketer, or whether it's all Nobel Prizes with Samuel Beckett.
Right, I think Ian Botham came close one year with some pioneering research on splitting
what I would have loved
mercury atoms.
If you'd have just got a really large ledger and you'd have opened it up and there'd have been all these different rainbow coloured ticks next to all the boxes, and you could have just said, oh yes, in 1953, the Nobel Prize for Chemistry. That would have been my dream. Well, this does feel a little bit like we've organised some sort of remote family mediation for you. Just wondering if either of you had a grievance to air in this safe space.
Well, let's bring in our elder brother, Richard.
What I found interesting, just with your the way that you were there notating all the nature of that particular cricket game is I bought for my dad last week from Jeff Towns, Dylan Thomas guy on Twitter who puts up new books on Instagram every day. I bought him a leaflet or a pamphlet of the Ashes series of, I think, 54, 55. Would it be 53, 54? Which you used to be able to buy, and it literally had every ball was described, everything that happened. It was an entire chronicle of, so obviously people who didn't have a radio or didn't have access could basically buy in book form ball by ball description of the entire Ashes series.
Yeah, I mean that's really very much the high point of human civilization. I mean you might look at the Michelangelo's little bit of interior decorating in the Sistine Chapel, but that was nowhere near as good as those 1950s cricket pamphlets. It would have been the 54-55 Ashes, I think, if it was the one in Australia. A thrilling series in which England, of course, came back from losing the first test to win 3-1.
Don't tell me yet. I haven't read the book. Don't give it. But I love things. I mean, what joy those things are.
I've wasted my life.
I wonder what you would be, Andy, without cricket. Just all of the things that could rush in and fill your personality.
Yes,
exactly.
Well,
you
let's
have
not think about that.
And the supercomputer has been trained onto that.
Yeah, it's been hacked. Yeah, it was hacked at the age of 6, I think.
Don't you think? I mean, that's the thing with the beauty.
It's going fine until Helen was born, to be honest. It all started going downhill.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a grudge.
But you've both found kind of corners of interest to obsess about, haven't you? Which I think is a good thing. I think that to me there are so many extraneous kind of barbs of existence if you've just got lots of interests. But I mean, like, Helen, with your with the Illusionist podcast, with the love of words, and you've always had all of the different kind of the Scrabble competitions that you would run during the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Those important because Scrabble's not fun. It's for mathematicians.
Oh, was it not? Or was it Bob?
Scrabble is for people who don't appreciate the thrills of life.
Yep.
Can I just tell quick story about my greatest ever victory in Scrabble.
Yes.
It was while my wife was in labour with our first child, and we were sitting in hospital, and she had been epiduraled up to the eyeballs, and I absolutely crushed her. It was a total and utter demolition.
Okay, maybe it's good that cricket has taken out the rest of your personality. You're dangerous.
Can we see the colour-coded framed victory in that, which of course underneath has a very small picture of the child that was born, but predominantly is dominated by your victory.
But to get back to your point, Robin, I would say that my interest in language, let's bear in mind, language is used in every country in the world, whereas cricket is played by, about 7 countries?
It's more than that, technically. The ICC has a lot of
9.
I could see the feeling rising up and it being just very, very carefully managed. I could see it. So, yeah, I understand. When you were younger, did you have an interest in words? How did it develop for you, sort of your linguistic hobby, passion?
Probably quite a lot to do with growing up with Andy and him being 5.5 years older than me and quite verbally agile. And also I was a mistake baby, so no one had to say.
You were a mistake child as well, not just a mistake baby. Not just a mistake baby.
I grew from a baby into a mistake adult. It's consistent. But, the family had kind of to other things when I was born. So it was very much like, if you're going to speak, then it has to be on a level with the others. So thank you for that.
And in terms of your exploration, I mean, you've done it's well over 100 now of the Allusionists, isn't it? Of that podcast. Are there certain words that by investigating them, you actually go, I'm not going to use that so much now. I find that I find that particular that phrase is out for me now.
It's really complicated my attitude towards the English language as a whole, because it's a very interesting language, but it's also a real problem because it's obliterated a lot of other languages. It's the story of colonialism through the language, but also little things. I think partly because I'm just being aware of linguistic shifts that are happening all the time. So my vocabulary has been informed by understanding more about, like gender identity and stuff like that. But one word I don't really use now is guys, because I didn't really care about it. And then I made an episode because I thought it was interesting that word that's quite generic came from Guy Fawkes. And I knew that some people didn't like it because they were like, it's gender specific, but it's used in a gender non-specific way. And I didn't really have feelings about it. And then by the time I finished the episode, I was just really pissed off about it. And I still am, because those gender non-specific words like guys and dude, they're always masculine words. And it's never the other way around. You don't get like gals becoming a word you can use for everybody. So gender neutral.
Yeah, I remember thinking that if I, as a woman, used them, I was somehow changing them. But you're right. It's you can't use, what's that really famous phrase of like, that you can't use your master's tools to dismantle your master's house.
Yes.
I can't remember. Sorry, I'm quoting it wrongly.
Depends on the tools that your master's got. If he's got a wrecking ball,
you might as well, But it's that feeling of exactly that. That it will always be within the confines of reclaiming a word that is a male word.
Yeah.
Even wrecking ball, of course, is a male term as well. It's not wrecking over it, is it?
It's true. It's true. Oh, that's very interesting, because I think it's something, again, like going onto stage, I'm trying to stop myself saying ladies and gentlemen, because I like the idea of saying something that means everybody in just a positive way, not trying to sort of make myself feel that I couldn't say it, but like trying to find a way to sort of, but it's so conditioned just to go, ladies and gentlemen, that, this thing's quite deep.
You start thinking about it, it's all ruined.
There's
nothing left.
It's true of everything.
So I think we'll come back and talk, because I'm very interested. I think it's a very interesting. I've certainly noticed. I think there was a point in terms of reading books where you start to notice the dominance, not merely of terminology, but like the number of collections of books that I've got from basically anything pre about 1990, where I go, wow, there's one female author or no female authors in this and that what again, like I always find it fascinating once you notice it once. It's a bit like the Discordian idea, you know, the number 23, and that once you will see the number 23 everywhere once you're kind of conditioned to go, right, I'm looking for the pattern, the 23 pattern. It doesn't work for me for some reason, but it works for Discordians generally, apparently, and Robert Anton Wilson amongst others. But that to me is that bit, if you, until you're made aware of it, you could just wander through the world and it doesn't bump against you at all. And then once you go, oh yeah, and that and that and that. And it does. I mean, I've changed. It's a great way of getting rid of some books as well. I'm always trying to find excuses to get rid of certain books. And I'll go, right, that's another shelf that I can just give up on now, because it turns out it's too archaic. These things are too archaic. We've not mentioned, by the way,
patriarchy books.
Yeah, science. I've certainly had a lot of changes in terms of comprehension of that journey. Anyway, we're gonna we should mention the tip jar. There's a tip jar at the bottom of this. We're building up a fund for artists and art centres, and also please go to our Patreon as well. This is kind of how we managed to make an enormous number of shows. I mean, we've made now I think over 70 of these, but also throughout the year we make lots of kind of documentaries, and we make podcasts every week on books, and we do lots of other stuff with scientists and literary people and all manner of things. And if you go to our Patreon site, and I think it's only about $1 or something like that per podcast or whatever, and we also work on a limit, so if we do too many podcasts in a month you don't end up getting charged for all of them. Join our Patreon thing so we can still keep making things, because we like making things. And someone else who likes making things, yes, Josie, yes, it is daytime, someone who likes making things is George Egg, the popular anarchist cook. So George, we haven't seen you since the very first episode, which seems such a long time ago now.
It wasn't my birthday as well. I'm so much older now than I was then.
But you look better. You look really wise. I think the lack of social interaction has really focused your mind.
You said wise. I thought you said wide, first of all. I was going to say, because I'm also looking wider than I was last time you saw me. Lockdown diet, etc. Anyway.
So what are you... I've got somewhere I have got your lovely recipe cards, by the way. I will mention to everyone who's watching this, if you get a chance, go and look at George's site. These recipe cards are absolutely beautifully made. And that's so much fun. That's my home shopping channel moment over and done with. George, what are you going to cook for us today?
I am going to demonstrate how you cook on a train, but I thought I'd start with a poem. I've got a little... This is a lockdown poem. It is it's a conversation between an adult and a child in lockdown, and it goes like this. What are you doing? Why have you opened 4 Actimels? I'm getting myself a drink. I'm thirsty. You can't do that. Well, I have. I was going to call that poem. I was going to call that poem "Lucky It Wasn't the Yakults." So I'm going to start with the cooking. When everything, can you hear me clearly? Let's assume so. Thumbs aloft.
As long as you project.
I will project like there's no tomorrow. I've been taking the train up until lockdown started. I was taking the train a lot, and we're all going to get back on the trains. And when we do, you will notice, if you look next to the tables on the carriages, they have little pairs of plug sockets, so people can charge up their smartphones and their tablets and so on. But this is brilliant for me because, as you all know, I like to cook. So what I do is I get onto the train, I secure myself a table, I plug in my laptop, okay? I plug in my mouse, Mr. Mouse here, he goes in the side there like that. And to the casual fellow passenger, glancing over, they're looking at this, going, is that a Macintosh Duo 100? Very retro. They're thinking, he looks like an interesting fellow. Maybe he's an architect or an artist or a barista, maybe. It's the beard. They think I'm pretty cool. Fact is, my friends, I'm not cool. I'm hot. I'm smoking hot because this isn't a portable computer as it appears to be. It is, in fact, a Caterlight 292 1850 7-portion George Foreman party grill. Oh yeah, how about that? You can cook on the train. What are you looking at? You're looking at 3 cheese toasties at 100 miles an hour. Sound nice? What about seared ribeye with Stilton foam? That's for sure. Aubergine 3 ways. Can't say that anymore, can you? Aubergines have become rude. They used to be just a vegetable. Now it's is that an aubergine in your pocket, or are you just pleased to see me? And in this instance, it is an aubergine. We're going to do a little aubergine dish. So I've sliced the aubergine up. As I say, I don't know when they started becoming rude. I've got a friend who knows I'm into cooking. She telephoned me the other day. She said, I need a moussaka recipe. I haven't got time to talk on the phone. Text it to me. I texted the moussaka recipe to her, illustrated it with emojis. All I got back was lol. I had to ring her up, say, why are you lolling me? She said, aubergines now represent private parts. Did you know that?
Yeah.
It's true. I thought, what a load of nonsense, until I held up 2 slices and I realised it does look a bit like my bum, doesn't it? So fair enough. So we're going to oil. Yeah, we're on the train. We're going to oil the aubergine generously, which sounds euphemistic. It's not. And then we pop the aubergine onto the keyboard of the laptop. Like that, on it goes, and then what you do is you pretend. Actually, I'm not going to get on with any work. I'll do that. I'll fiddle with my iPhone, or I'll do a Sudoku, and then you shut the lid of the laptop like that, and then you're cooking on the train. I've upset other passengers looking over, saying things like, "I think your laptop's overheating." Yeah. When they do, you can have fun. You can say it is overheating, isn't it? I should open a window. Shall I open a window? Wait a minute, and then you go like this, and you go. File, new window, open new window. It's not working. If they don't laugh, you just go sausage, and then you're all friends. So this is the mouse. This is the mouse we're using. This is I'll just drag it up. It's the Apple Pro mouse, the M5769. It's the last of the tethered mice before they went wireless, the corded mouse. I'm using this for 3 very important reasons. The first, it's kind of in keeping with the more retro look of the computer. It's less suspicious. Secondly, it's important to use a separate mouse with this model because the trackpad on this machine does get very hot. And thirdly, and most importantly, the Pro mouse is the one with the hollow acrylic shell, if you remember that. So what I've done with mine is I've removed the shell. I've drilled 9 holes in the end. I've filled it up with a mixture of smoked salt and black pepper, and then you can just season as you go. Thought of everything, haven't I, folks? We'll pop that down like that. Be ready when the ticket inspector comes along. Ready with an excuse why it is you're typing or wearing oven gloves. Big keys, hot keys, which is a thing. So we're going to have it's a vegetarian dish. We're going to have a nice little tahini dressing with this. I've secreted my tahini in a coffee cup, regular coffee cup. See that on the train? No one's going to query that on the train, are they? We're going to add some garlic to that as well. Got a clove of garlic here. Now, if you want to crush a clove of garlic, various ways you can do it. You can do it with the heat of the hand, the side of a knife, but they're all quite aggressive motions. You know what I mean? You don't want to be too conspicuous, especially since the whole "See It, Say It, Sorted" campaign. Yeah. Imagine people ringing up the number saying, there's a man acting very suspiciously on the train over there. They say, well, does he look like he's making a bomb? No, looks like he's making a baba ganoush. Smells lovely. The tray tables. You get the tray tables on the trains, the fold down, weird design. Yeah, they've got, look, next time you're on a train, have a little look. You'll see that they've got a little hinge that comes up about an inch from the bottom of the tray table, and as it folds down, that cantilevers against the little lip on the back of the seat in front, and it kind of to stop it going any further than horizontal. I found if you imagine if you were to put a child's finger in there, you could do it some damage. However, I've discovered that if you pop a clove of garlic in, you can crush it and peel it all at the same time. It's almost as if they want you to do it, isn't it? That's my excuse. We're going to have, look, so we've got the garlic mixed in there as well. We're going to put some lemon juice in here too. I've got a lemon. Here's a neat little thing. Obviously, you're going to want to come away from these shows feeling like you've learned something, aren't you? All right. Here's something to learn with a lemon. If you're going to juice a lemon, all right. If you do that before you cut it in half, looks like you know what you're doing. Good. So we put some lemon juice in there as well, and then we're going to mix that up. Lemon juice in tahini is really weird. You would imagine adding something the consistency of lemon juice thin and watery to something the consistency of cream, like tahini, you would imagine it would go all it doesn't. It goes all thick like a peanut buttery paste. Look at that, you see. And you've got to slake it down with some water. Again, a bottle of water on the tray. No one's going to be suspicious of that. But there is a scientific reason why, when you add the lemon juice to the tahini, why it makes it go all stiff. And I would imagine scientific, you probably want to know. I've got a friend who, by her own admission, is a bit of a science buff. And we went out for a meal not long before lockdown started. And she told me at length exactly why, when you add tahini to lemon juice, why it makes it go all stiff. But I wasn't listening. Still, you could probably Google it, couldn't you? Can't do all the work. All right, look, we'll mix it up. I would imagine, I might be just way off the mark here, but I would imagine the sort of audience who watches a show like this, I would imagine is quite a middle-class audience. Yeah, folks, you middle class. All right, here's a way of gauging it. And I can't see you, so I don't know if you're going to react to this, but I would imagine a lot of you have got the old My Waitrose card, haven't you? You know, which is a brilliant, the My Waitrose card. It's great. You can go in there, you can get your newspaper, you can get your magazine, and of course you can get your free coffee, which was great, or rather it was great until about 6 months ago when they moved the goalposts. Because you used to be able to go in there, and you want to see, look, it's all real. You used to go in there, and you used to get your shopping, and then you get through and you get your and then about 6 months ago, you go through, you get the shopping you didn't need, you get to the counter, they'd say, have you got your My Waitrose card? You say, yes, I have. They'd say, would you like your free coffee? You say, yes, please. And then they'd say, have you bought your reusable cup? And you go, what? Because you forget it until, I mean, obviously it's the right thing to do. They stopped giving away the reusable cups. The disposable cups, and it's the right thing to do because the world's warming up. We've got to do something about it. But frankly, until they invent a self-remembering reusable cup, I'm not going to have mine with me. I tried a few various options. They sell reusable cups in Waitrose, so I went back into the shop, got £9, yeah, got one, got my cappuccino, finished it, threw it in the recycling. Muscle memory, most annoying. Tried a Passata Tetra Pak. That wasn't very nice. Should have rinsed it, shouldn't I? My favourite thing to do, and I would urge you, when it all returns to normal, I would urge you to do this because it's tremendous fun. You get to the checkout, they say, have you got your cup? And you go, oh, wait a minute, I forgot, hold on, I'll just go back to the car. Go back to the car, have a rummage around where in your cup holder. See if you can find a cup from a rival coffee outlet, yeah? Preferably somewhere very un-Waitrose, like McDonald's, or even better, Greg's. And then what you do is you cover the logo. All right, you cover the logo. You go into the shop like that. You help yourself to your coffee. You can feel the middle class people in the queue behind you bristling, looking over your shoulder, going, "He's got a disposable cup. You're not allowed to use that." And then you suddenly expose the logo, and they go, "He's got a Greg's cup. He's got a Greg's cup in Waitrose." Loads of fun. All right, so, yeah, who's he? Who's that? What's that? This is coriander. We're going to use a bit of coriander with this. I'll just pick some of these leaves off. I'm using the coriander for. Well, the main reason I'm using the coriander, I hate the idea that people will watch this demonstration and they'll leave the experience afterwards going, well, it was kind of like comedy, but it was also like a cookery demonstration, and it was a bit like a lecture on thinking outside the box, and it was all very interesting, and I left feeling entertained and also educated. But that dish he did really could have done with some coriander, couldn't it? So we want to cover all the eventualities. Look, you can clean it up with a train ticket as well. Think of the next person. Looks like I'm doing drugs, doesn't it? It's just coriander. So let's check on the look. That's nearly there. It's nearly there. We'll just get the tomatoes out. We're gonna do a nice little topping, to go with this. I'll unplug that. Get my tomatoes. The train toilet is your friend, folks. All right. Now I know they've got a poor reputation, but you've got loads of things in the train toilet that you can make use of. You've got hand towels. You've got hot and cold running water. You've got a toilet for getting rid of stuff. You've even got a pretty good work surface if you drop down the baby changer unit and give it a wipe. But the best thing in there is the thing which emits heat. Now, if we're looking at most train companies, we're talking Thameslink, we're talking Southern, ScotRail, Virgin. You've got the slightly outmoded but nonetheless useful Warner Howard DC30 Air Force One hand dryer with the stainless steel. I don't know what I'm saying. I've got one here. one of those. Remember that? Yeah, it's brilliant. It's tremendous. You remember you got the nozzle there and the button. But you can have fun. You can do Madonna and Desperately Seeking Susan. Dry the armpits. Yeah, or even better than that, if you can get enough purchase, 1 foot on the baby changer unit, 1 foot on the toilet, you can do a pretty good Marilyn Monroe if you're wearing your favourite dress. So what you do is you get a Kit Kat foil, okay, which I've got here. Now you form it into this shape, so it goes around the nozzle. Now I've put in mine a mixture of black and white sesame seeds, all right, some nori seaweed flakes, a little bit of demerara sugar, a tiny bit of chili, and what you do is you put it over the nozzle like that, and you press the button. Pass, 1 pass. Wait till it finishes. 2 passes. 4, 8, 16, 32 passes. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. They will be perfectly toasted. All right. You open the door. There'll be someone there clutching themselves like this. You say to them, "My hands have never been so dry." And then you return to your seat, and you've got your lovely little toasted seeds. So we're just going to pop those on top of there like that. It's very nearly done. We're just going to finish it off with a little bit more of the lemon juice, like that on top. The coriander, and then finally 1 ingredient. Now this is a vegan dish, ladies and gentlemen. It was very nearly vegan. There's 1 ingredient that stops it being vegan. Panda meat. Come on. Oh, no, just kidding. This is the ingredient that stops it being vegan. Honey, because honey isn't vegan. Yeah, some vegans are not. I didn't even know this. I was doing a show before the lockdown. Quite a militant vegan in the audience called out, honey isn't vegan. But I did have quite a good retort. So I went, honey isn't vegan. So you can use that. Anyway, we'll just put a tiny bit of that, just a little trickle. That goes on there. This is gonna blow your minds. You know the singer Sting? Robin, Josie, you know Sting, don't you? Yeah. He keeps bees. Do you know this is true, he's called Sting, and he keeps bees. He was being interviewed. The interviewer noticed, he said to Sting, "Oh, you're called Sting and you keep bees." And Sting went, "Yeah, bees are like a narrative. They've got a beginning, a middle, and an end." But you idiot, you didn't even spotted it. Why are you talking like that as well, you fool? Anyway, that is my little breakfast cooked on the train. I'll bring it up to the camera so you can have a nice look. All cooked on the train. There we go.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, George. And I think as well, that is a perfect dish for between Haywards Heath and East Croydon. You have just enough time for prepping and all of that. George, as well, just looks great. Where should people go to find out more about your cooking and I won't say your live work for the time being?
You can go to georgeegg.com where I've got info. There's some videos on there, and also the opportunity, if you wish, to buy the recipe cards, which have all the recipes, how to do on the train, how to do with power tools, how to do in a hotel room, and the instructions on the back. And they're all fake stained. They're based on the old Weight Watchers cards, which you're
the design is so classic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, George. We, as I said, go and find out about George Egg's work, and if you have time, start. I don't have a. Do you have got my Waitrose card, Josie? I haven't got my Waitrose card. I've got a Hertfordshire Libraries card.
I know you get a free coffee with them as well, which is I'm just basically leaving money on the table. There's no need.
Got to get my Waitrose card. It's the future.
No, my Hertfordshire Libraries card is more than enough for my wallet. Thank you.
Well,
thank you, George.
I just say a public information thing, which is that I did not realise what my library card entitled me to online, and it entitles me to so much access to ebooks and magazines and journals and stuff like that. And if you are a library member and you haven't thought in those, because I just always think about it in terms of physical books, but this time especially, have a look, see what your council does, because Hackney Council does amazing stuff. So,
that's a really thing to know. I will go and find out about that later on. I had no idea about that either. I'm just quickly going to mention, this wasn't going to be my show and tell, but it happens to be, I wouldn't normally show men's magazines, but again, Jeff Towns, I couldn't resist getting a copy of Men Only, because I think it's very interesting culturally to see the change in things. And Men Only in 1942, their cover star was an avuncular Stalin. So it's a big change.
Oh my God.
So, Avunculus in 1942. I've got it particularly for the adverts. There's a wonderful. The wise warden has one before he turns out, and another before he turns in. Schweppes table water. Beautiful
Did Stalin get his kit off of that or not?
I will.
It's very tasty. Very tasty.
The one with Mao's little red. Anyway, so this is this. So I'm just flicking through it. Stab cricket. This is one for you, Andy. This is an essay about stab cricket by, I don't know if you know the author R.C. Robertson Glasgow.
Yes, he was a famous cricketer, very witty.
Is that true?
This
known as Crusoe, isn't it?
Sorry?
His name was Crusoe.
Yeah, well, this is...
I feel like your knowledge is so precious. Like anything that's put in front of you can be related.
Yes, that's true. But yeah, that's not my knowledge. That's just how great cricket is, Josie.
It's a way of justifying it.
But that's the thing, isn't it? It's a wonderful way that we can all justify our interest. We will find ways of connecting them to the universe in so many. I mean, you must find that, Helen, as well, which is what some people might see as a reasonably arcane hobby. For you, is something which gives you some sense of connection.
Well, you can always connect anything to a 70s cookbook. Usually through nightmares.
So I don't know how much time we've got. I have a 1930s magazine that had a page entitled "If a Test Match Were Played on the Moon," with an illustration of what cricket would be like on the moon.
Andy, I need you to scan that page and email that to me. That is something that I have to share. That is such a wonderful thing. Well, I wanted to just ask you,
what is stab cricket? Stab cricket, by the way.
Yes, it sounds very.
You sharpen the bat and then just go.
It was a way of making cricket more attractive to the wartime population, by the sounds of it.
Well, for R.C. Robertson Glasgow, it's schoolboys in moments of stolen ease. Stolen ease. Isn't that a wonderful phrase? Stolen ease.
That was very different from the 80s.
Yeah. Sometimes play stab cricket. They make a chart, Andy. You're in on this already, aren't you? They make a chart of exits, entrances, extras, and other familiar contingencies, seize a pair of compasses, or better still, someone else's pen, and project themselves into heroic adventures before roaring crowds. Hammond bowled me with a leg break. Me, 6, 6, 6, 6, run out, damn it.
And then I stabbed them all.
Yeah, and then you stab them with the compass, it appears.
Hammond wasn't really a leg break bowler, so it's a slightly unlikely scenario.
But you can go anywhere you want. That's the thing about stab cricket. It opens up the imagination. One of my favourite cricket moments was I was down in the Larne Weekend Festival, beautiful festival, and it was a one-dayer between England and the West Indies, and it was the Martin Carthy, the brilliant folk singer Martin Carthy, and Linton Kwesi Johnson. And Linton Kwesi Johnson wouldn't go on until the end of the match. And you will now be able to tell me which match this was. I can't remember. I think the final over, the West Indies were probably lagging by somewhere like about 25 runs, and as far as I remember, the first 4 balls, each one a 6 was scored.
Well, that was the final of the 2016 World 2020, in which Ben Stokes, as part of his great redemption arc, bowled.
Entered a fugue state.
Yes.
Kwesi Johnson walked on stage that night with just that sense of extra victory. I mean, it was a brilliant gig anyway. Linton Kwesi Johnson is a wonderful artist to watch, but that moment of him just seeing Martin Carthy was lovely about it, but you could see there was a sense that Martin Carthy's gig would go for a more melancholy folk sensation really that evening, whereas Linton Kwesi Johnson went for a lot more of his upbeat work.
And Andy, I want to ask you, this is potentially the only time in our lives when there's no sport.
Yeah.
This is potentially, what's it been like for you to have no new sport for this length of time? How's it felt? What have you done?
Well, it's been deeply harrowing, Josie. I mean, in many ways, it's the worst aspect of this whole crisis on a global level, you know. I mean, because, a world without sport, we've seen, is not what's the point of that? Sport without a world, we could still watch that, couldn't you? You could still watch. Yeah, I mean, really.
On the Mir space station.
Yeah,
International
exactly.
Space Station.
So,
When we were children, Andy invented a form of cricket that he could play in the car with a six-sided roll to
I didn't invent
find
that.
out how many runs.
I didn't invent that. I honed it. It was not my invention.
So,
Who would you play on your own?
Yeah.
Who needs teams?
Yeah.
But have you done something similar to fill the void? Have you been playing a lot of sport at home? Have you been inventing sports? Have you been watching old sport? What have you been doing?
A bit of all of those things, yes. But yeah, it's in fact, yesterday we were out for our 1 hour state mandated walkies to go and do our business on the common, and some people were releasing balloons, and I got really excited as to which balloon would rise the quickest. I mean, that's what I'm reduced to now, is getting excited about a balloon race. So
Anything can become a sport.
Yes.
See what goes off in your fridge quickest.
Yeah.
Also, what's good about that is it's a longer game, like cricket, isn't it? Because that lasts weeks. That
Yes.
fridge watch.
Yeah. There's something meditative about it, but yeah, you can just sit there watching your fridge, and obviously, if you keep the door open, it goes off quicker, so that slightly spoils the.
But that's like a 2020 version of the.
Yeah.
You've got the
match fixing.
Yeah, I'm just mentioning that. You basically just got to sit next to a closed fridge and maybe open it and have a look about once every 8 hours. I think that's probably a pretty good substitute for Test match cricket. I
have to admit, Helen, that the image of you all growing up is this kind of weirdly, gregariously solitary experience of family life.
That works.
So in terms of the Illusionists, are you still creating those at the moment? Are there more episodes coming out?
Yeah, week. So I suppose I should make some.
Where you're going to begin with this? I mean, in any way, has this situation changed? Because all of these, there are certain things. The most cliched and mundane would be things like furloughed, which words which suddenly appear, and very often people then don't even quite. I had no real idea exactly what that was till yesterday, talking to a friend of mine being furloughed. But words appear. And very often we don't even question them. We just, he's been furloughed. What does that mean? Well, furlough. All of those things. So the vocabulary changes with situations like this.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cliches as well, because you don't have the words really, so you just resort to the ones that are around. And I think it's so I'm trying to figure out how to vent the fact that I'm very pissed off at governments using war analogies for this and why I think it's bad. But what I'm going to do next week is an episode about keep calm and carry on. I know, right? So
one of the worst things.
Yeah.
Just one of the most culturally sort of vapid and gross and unhelpful. And all of its children. All of its keep calm. I'm bitch. Keep calm and
anything can happen after the end. Yeah. So I'm going to talk with a psychologist, find out why it's annoying.
Have you ever found something that has really, really been the opposite of what your expectation would have been? So you've gone in to investigate something thinking, this will be an interesting story because my assumption is this, that, the other. And then it's actually been completely different to that when you've investigated it.
Yeah, quite a lot. Otherwise, I'm not that interested, actually. I don't really want to look into them. Quite often you think, this will be a good story, and it's actually very boring. There's a lot of etymology where it looks juicy and it's just origin unknown, or it's meant that since 800 AD. I thought step was really interesting because I thought, that probably means that, you're a step away from the biological lineage of the family, but it actually means grief. Because until fairly recently, if there was a step relative, that was because a death had occurred.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the war analogy one. I think is a wonderful place to go. Because also that sense failed. Should you in any way be defeated by something which is not in the position for you to be able to control? I think is one of the we see that with so many different kind of ideas of disease, etc.
Yeah, right. Battling cancer. It's not necessarily self-determined. Most illnesses, in fact, like you just have to kind of sit and have them. But I suppose people want to blame you for you being ill, so that it makes them feel like if they stay strong in mind, they can't get it.
But also, I think it limits cooperation between countries, because you have battled it the best compared to other countries, when actually what would be much more useful were all of us to cooperate globally and resources, But
I think it stopped people really looking at trying to get the virus to the table to negotiate some kind of settlement, some kind of armistice, because politicians can't be seen to back down.
Who can blame the virus if it's treated in those terms? Yeah.
I just think war is such a weird thing to be nostalgic for as well. And I'd imagine people who've actually lived through one don't feel that.
But it's exactly, isn't it? It's the generation whose parents lived through the war, and there's going to be so much to do with their personal connections to them and their feelings of whether or not they let them down, or whether or not they feel that they've lived according to what their parents wanted them to do, etc. Like, there's going to be so much odd psychological human stuff that's linked to that generation's kind of, in general, kind of voting for certain things that younger generations are kind of horrified by. Obviously not everyone. But I think, when you see kind of Conservative MPs nostalgic for certain things that they never themselves experienced.
I think it's not. I would actually say it's not mere. I don't think it follows party lines specifically. I actually think that the nostalgia for the better times for it is in lots of different ways, in lots of different areas. I do understand what you mean, and there are certain. We know the Mark Francoises, etc. They are seem to be the most overt. But I think it can be. We're running out of time, so I quickly need to say some of the live chat. People's obsessions, by the way. Motorhead, very good obsession, by the way. Motorhead, there's a very beautiful. If you've never seen Lemmy's memorial service, it's on YouTube. Go and have a look at that. REM, but only up to New Adventures in Hi-Fi. The other obsessions.
Very interesting.
I think there's some very good stuff in the 21st century from them, actually. Fonts. Wooden board games, only wooden board games, motorcycle racing, and Miles on live chat used to play word cricket at school via a teacher with a verbal habit. We scored a run every time he said the word yes, and a wicket if he said no. Some amazing scores in a 45-minute class. So those are some of the other obsessions. Andy, what can people see or hear or read that you're doing at the moment?
Well, just the Bugle, really. They're still doing that every week, reporting on news that isn't really moving at all at the moment. It's a challenging time.
Yeah, how's it been to write the Bugle during something like this?
Well, quite difficult, because even with stories like Brexit, there's a sense of evolution about it, whereas the coronavirus stories is pretty much the only news there has been for almost a whole year. It's now in a sort of stage of stasis, and it's quite hard to satirise things when you don't have anything approaching complete information about it, I think. So it's been a challenge, certainly, and often the easier things to do is just totally off the wall random stuff that I intersperse with the rest of it. So but I think the shows have been pretty good.
Well, I'm sure people who watch this will your weekly creative pain at the very least. Helen, as you said, the Illusionist, is there anything else people should look out for?
Yeah, there's Answer Me This, and my other podcast, Veronica Mars Investigations, which is recapping the TV show Veronica Mars. But we also did a recap the other week of the 1995 BBC adaptation of Pride and Prejudice.
Helen, first time in my life, I've mentioned this on this show before, but for the first time in my life, I engaged with Pride and Prejudice, and I watched the Joe Wright film, and I loved it, and I watched it 3 times because it was so good. So I suppose I should watch the BBC. How do you feel that compares to the BBC adaptation?
I think there's things in one that are bad in the other one. So combined, perfect.
Good.
Pride and all this, essentially.
You can only choose one.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Tomorrow, we have, amongst others, we have Maeve Higgins and Claudia Hodotti. And if you have not seen Claudia's show, Sarah's channel, which is on YouTube, go and have a look at that. It's absolutely fantastic. And also,
extraordinary on Netflix as well.
So watch those if you get a chance for them. And also we have the FGs tomorrow. They're our musical guest. Josie, do you have specific plans?
Yes, I'm going to try and do some writing in the next few 2 hours. So that'll be fun for me. And then probably try and kill the day as best we can. Who was that? Oh gosh, I think it was you and I talking about it. God, I hate my brain these days. There's it's somebody that you would really talking about spending the day with their 5-year-old and saying we killed the day as best we could. And that's what we're going to be doing. Oh, it's someone really great as well that you'd be like, wow, they said that.
Join us tomorrow and find out who the person was. Vitriola tonight at 8:30 with Michael Legg. We're back on Cosmic Shambles Stay at Home Festival, and hopefully we definitely have Pen Friend again. Laura Kidd, aka Pen Friend, is going to play some more of her new songs with us, and hopefully as well, he's currently in Nashville. We're going to also be joined by Robin Hitchcock. So that's this evening. 8:30.
So you're doing that today? Okay, good.
Oh yeah, and then I've bought a huge A1 pad, which is how I'm now writing the book, through collage and lots of lines, and the approach to the Overlook Hotel in terms of my writing increases daily.
Oh wow! Well, that's good.
I'll show you tomorrow. I'll show you where I'm getting with my ideas and my cutting and my montage. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks, Trent. Thanks, everyone who's joined us on Patreon as well today. If you, as I said, we make sure there's a cap as well. We're trying to create as much stuff as possible. So go and join Cosmic Shambles on Patreon. Bye.